Welcome back and new Mandalorian, new episode breakdown here on Max Talks. We're talking about season 3, chapter 19, which is really season 3, episode 3, called The Converts. We're going to break down this episode, what I liked, what I didn't like about it, the overall, where the story might be taking us, and all those things. And it's a very spoiler breakdown. So please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel. I do these TV show reviews, movie reviews, box office breakdown shows every week, and a movie ranking. So please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel. Comment down below. What are your thoughts on this episode of Mandalorian? Was this your favorite, least favorite? Did you like the direction that this episode went into, or you just want to go back to Mando and Bo moving forward? And also, please like the video, guys. The thumbs up button, that's how you support this channel. So this episode was chapter 19, The Convert, which really was mostly about Dr. Pershing, who we saw from the first 2 seasons. I'm really hoping I say this name right. Omid Abtahi. Again, I hope I'm saying that name right. And then also you have Ella Kane, played by Katie O'Brien, who was in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and now returns in this episode. She's also just in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We kicked off this episode where we ended last week with The Mandalorian, which was they bathed in the waters, the depths of Mandalore, but Bo did see that mythosaur underneath, the first living one in a very long time, which is a very big deal to this culture. But when they come out, she basically like, did you say anything down there? And Mando kind of doesn't really remember. Then she's like, do you say anything living down there? And that's when he just doesn't say anything. And she kind of keeps this to herself, which I do think is very interesting. So they go into this big fight as they're about to leave the, trying to get off the planet. All of these TIE interceptors come out and start attacking them. Now, this is very interesting because the question is, who is attacking them if Gideon is in prison? Now, I think overall, they could be setting up for Grand Admiral Thrawn down the line. Now, I am interested if with Thrawn, if they do want to save that for Ahsoka and that show, which comes out sometime later this year, or do they want to really start combining these shows into basically the same universe, which is basically where Ahsoka will be taking place. So it will be interesting to see if Thrawn ends up being maybe the overall big bad of this season leading into Ahsoka. I really don't want that to be the case. I still want Ahsoka and Sabine together to find Thrawn. But we'll see. That's just my little theory, I guess. I do think Thrawn, there's only one other person I could think of in the galaxy going after them, and it could be Thrawn at the end of the day. But Mando escapes into his ship. They war off, but as they're doing this, a whole bombers just blow up the throne, the castle that Bo was living on. And another home that Bo is seen destroyed. So Bo and Mando go off. They're about to get in this fight, and they veer off. And we cut off with them there until the last kind of 10 minutes of the episode. This is also the longest episode of the series so far. The first episode was 35 minutes without credits. This episode was last week was 42 minutes without credits. Sorry, with credits. And this episode was around like 55 minutes with credits. So basically an hour episode of the show. And this basically all took place on Coruscant with Dr. Pershing and with Dr. Pershing, who's obviously back after trying to clone Grogu from the first 2 seasons, and Ella Kane, who worked under Moff Gideon, if you remember, last season. I actually did remember, because when she came up, I was like, that kind of looks like the person who worked with Gideon. And then he said, I was like, that's a good point. So this really is the first time that we've really seen Coruscant live action. Again, we saw what was going on with the Coruscant in Andor, but that was right before, still before New Hope, leading into Rogue One. This is the first time we've seen Coruscant since the end of Return of the Jedi, because again, in live action things, we obviously saw Andor and the prequels, but animated we've been there. But again, seeing this is the first time we've seen Coruscant since the Battle of Andor, and I think that's very crucial. And it's such a beautiful planet. I think it's why a lot of people do like the prequels a lot, is the world building and the planets that were introduced in those movies and Clone Wars. And obviously Coruscant was one of those, the capital. And I think also just seeing it from Andor's point of view and where it was in Andor, and now seeing it where it is now in The Mandalorian, I find very fascinating. It was a definitely depressing planet. that still was very lively, but not like this. And the dynamic of these two, again, people, the converts, as they say in this episode, which really means Ella Kane, really could be really, I think, the main convert. I think we're kind of thinking about maybe it's Pershing, but I really think it's going to be Ella Kane at the end of the day. I think she's actually trying to protect the New Republic by not allowing him to start these cloning things. And I think it's very dangerous technology, as she probably assumes in this episode. Basically, it's just kind of like walk through the life of Pershing as he becomes a new member. He talks in that that room where it was a concert in Revenge of the Sith. It's the same exact spot where you get that Darth Plagueis line delivered from Palpatine to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. You even see those red steps that they very much glance over as the same steps Anakin, ran up to meet with Palpatine in a lot of people's favorite scene in Revenge of the Sith. Instead of this concert hall or this, whatever it was, whatever they were watching in Revenge of the Sith, I think a speech Pershing gives about his clone technology, but he's just another doctor. He's L-52. But they're both in the New Republic, and there's a lot of joking. There could be like a romantic thing going on here. But at this point, Pershing just wants to continue working for his technology for the New Republic. And there's Imperial data that is missing. He just can't do it unless going off to the shipyard to get Imperial things, which is obviously against the law. And that's kind of when Ella comes in and it's kind of like, we've been following orders for our whole lives, and look what that got us. We need to, kind of live a little bit. You saw that scene when they went to that maze in Coruscant, that kind of big area. He almost touched the rock. And it was a very funny, cute scene. So overall, this then all the way, he kind of takes a couple days to kind of think about it. He just wants to go and get this technology and get back his cloning stuff. So he starts going to work in this ship, and this is where it's kind of a twist. She kind of gets him caught, and she does take the things back, but they capture Pershing, and this is when it's a really good scene where Pershing's about to get kind of the rehabilitation. He is scared to death that this is kind of like a mind wipe thing, and this mind calamari. It's actually kind of refreshing. I've already done it before. It's very refreshing. And this officer thanks Ella for being, with every failure there's a success, and he thanked her for being the success, for turning him in. And he's like, I'm just gonna get out of here. Let's get out of here. She's like, I'm gonna stay. He's my friend. I care about him. This, that, or that. And you're like, okay, interesting. And then she turns all of the things up. So I don't know what that actually means. If she's like killing Pershing or making him like a mind wipe. I really don't understand what that ending kind of meant, which is kind of exciting here moving forward. And also interested in where they take this storyline next. But they devote a whole episode to this. And obviously we knew the cloning technology was used to get Palpatine, Snoke, that kind of situation, Rise of Skywalker. I don't know if The Mandalorian will touch those sequel trilogy movies in a big way. I think they're going to kind of have to, the more the seasons go on. And I think this is kind of a big way of continuing that. So then we cut back to Bo and Mando. Mando goes back to that desert planet where he knows his clan is, his group of people, as the cult, as Bo used to say. Mando got proof of the water in that tube thing, and they're going to have this great conversation with Jon Favreau's Mandalorian, Vizsla, and is basically like, he didn't believe that the place is cursed. They go to the armorer, played by Emily Swallow. And this is where, Mando gets redeemed officially. And because Bo-Katan also bathed there, she is now also redeemed. And because she has not removed her helmet since being in the water, she can be one of them. And I found this to be a great ending to this episode. Because again, Bo has lost literally everything. She's lost her sister, who died in Clone Wars, who was the Duchess of Mandalore. She lost all of her clan because she, doesn't have the dark saber to lead them. And then she lost her whole castle, where she was just basically staying in exile. and now she's kind of become one of the people again. Which I think is going to be the big thing of this season, I think, is uniting all the different viewpoints and clans of Mandalore under one umbrella, which is kind of what the Darksaber was originated to do. Again, the question is, who would be the person to do that? Is it Bo-Katan? Is it Mando? Is it even Grogu? I don't know, but I thought it was a really great and heartwarming end, because if you follow Bo-Katan all the way from Clone Wars to Rebels to now, she has lost so much over the previous years you've been watching her on TV. And seeing her finally being welcomed into something else, I thought was really heartwarming. If you care about the character, even if you've just seen The Mandalorian, I think you'll also respect the journey that she's been on to get to this point. So that's my thoughts. I thought it was a very good episode. It was definitely, I think, my least favorite. Maybe it was actually, if it's right up there with episode 1 for me. I think episode 2 for me is still going to be my favorite of the 3 so far. But I thought this was a great episode. Seeing Coruscant post Return of the Jedi, I thought was really great. Seeing Pershing, I think they're going to set up a lot of things down the road. I did feel like the episode for me was a bit too long. I think because it was a very slow build this episode, which is a big departure from the kind of fast-paced show that it is. I think it could have been cut down by a couple, maybe like 10 minutes. But I still thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It was also directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who this is his first directed episode of The Mandalorian. And he's obviously the director for Minari, which came out during the pandemic, which was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. So this was his first directed episode of the entire show so far. Thought did a great job really encapsulating Coruscant, making this episode felt like a combination of Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Andor into a Mandalorian episode, which I had a lot of blast watching. So that's my thoughts on this new episode of The Mandalorian. I'll do breakdowns every single Wednesday here for this show. Moving forward, every single Thursday, I do another review, spoiler breakdowns of another Star Wars show, The Bad Batch, which is also on Disney Plus. I'll break down that show tomorrow. Also coming out today, because of my flight schedule being out of pack to come back to Philadelphia on Monday and Tuesday. Today, you'll get my spoiler breakdown of the final episode of The Last of Us in season 1. Early next week, you'll get my box office breakdown show back on Monday. You also get my Shazam Fury of the Gods review, as well as another breakdown of chapter 20 now of The Mandalorian coming next week. I'll see you guys then.